Thank you all for coming. I just wanted to introduce, there's going to be a video here that our friends over at Fox Sports, my friends over at Fox Sports, put together with our features department of how we like to connect with the community through feature stories of emotional and different athletes connecting with people. So if we can roll that video, we'll take a look at that. We'll fire it up and watch this video here. Let's take a look.
Lights, full, go, guys.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
In 3, 2, 1.
Where do you even begin?
Are you ready for this?
This is gonna be big.
Hey, look around. This is the grandest of grand stages.
Army boy, what's up? What up, babe? Have a seat, bro.
Who picks up the tab when all you guys go out for dinner?
I think we just take interns.
I love winning, and the other guys are maybe more in the I hate losing bit, you know?
When we don't have that same results, it's like, it's like the world is ended.
Win, or out.
Definitely.
The shooters, we feel like that next shot's going in.
How do we stop Cam Newton?
You can't. You can only try to manage it. I work too damn hard. Too damn hard.
I'm not the Superman or the superhero that they can see sometimes on the field. There is a human being behind the celebrity.
It's gonna be great.
Hey, just another day, right?
The journey to Super Bowl 48 starts now.
Right here on Fox.
Go Jib.
I might get emotional.
Do you know who that is?
Tiger Woods.
That's Tiger Woods.
Come here, big guy.
I was pretty dark and troubled back then. And I'm dark and troubled now, but not like back then. It's just, I'm cool.
I believe life experiences allow you to grow if you really take them in.
Why can't you play hard, man? That's just the approach that I've always had. And there's always someone's going to be better, more talented. There's no reason someone should outwork you or play harder.
We have an opportunity to bring back the World Cup back to the United States. I know we can do it. We just got to believe.
When you watch TV, you think that my life is just wild. People have to realize it's all about entertainment.
Thank you. It's amazing seeing that. I just wanted to share that to get us prepared for this terrific session. I know working for Fox Sports is pretty amazing. As a sports fan, growing up in a small town in Casper, Wyoming, watching Fox Sports and the Dallas Cowboys as a family, seeing the Cowboys play every week on Fox Sports when they first started was pretty cool. And now working for them is such a dream come true for me, and having the opportunity to have met, half of those heroes of mine when I was a kid through my time at Fox Sports and NFL Network and the Minnesota Vikings. It's given me the opportunity to work and cover 7 Super Bowls and bring friends and family to those games, and go into those games is like nothing you could ever imagine. Seeing the lights flash. Chris would know, he's played in professional sports. I didn't play in professional sports, but it's definitely really cool. And another thing I just wanted to say is it's really humbling to be up here today, and the way that it all came together with just a genuine interaction I had with a person pitching a story to Fox Sports, and just here speaking in front of you is incredible. All these highly qualified communications professionals. I'm really honored to be here, and thank you for having me. So before we officially begin and we start with Chris, I just wanted to take a moment to give you a little bit about what the content and the structure of this session will be. Today our panelists will share how sports teams go about the business of engaging a number of different constituencies. In today's world, building a brand requires fostering a strong community of brand advocates, whether they are a virtual community online or fans in the stands. Authentic organizations go beyond simply engaging target audiences. They build an emotional connection that allows them to convert mere participants into brand advocates. Amassing a base of loyal brand enthusiasts requires this emotional connection. And some of the connections I take from that video, you see the little boy, the one that kind of jumps out at me right away, the little boy who was on the golf course, and you just see that the emotion in his face, and you hear it in his voice when he sees Tiger Woods, who's not really in the best light right now in the public, but it's still, he was on top of his game for a long time, and it was just a really touching story that really kind of tugs at the heartstrings. And then the other one is the Kaká, the Brazilian soccer player, who in the interview says, you know, I want to take the human element out of it, or just become, be the human instead of the celebrity that you see on the field. And I thought that was really, really good for this session. So people connect to people, and so putting a face to your brand, on your brand, is important. But advocates have to be true believers and users of your product. Take, for example, the LA Galaxy. They successfully built a fan base through not only the accomplishments of their team, but also through the connections fans have made to individual players. We'll talk a little bit about that when Chris shares his story, and there's one special player that I want to bring up to you and get more about that. His name's Jossie. We'll hear more about that later. And so sure, the players do interviews like we do at Fox Sports on TV, and they have social media profiles where they can connect with fans now more than ever. But they also are out in the communities forming these connections on a regular basis. So the Special Olympics has also grown into a powerful movement by creating emotional connections between the volunteers and athletes, building communities, and changing the lives of athletes and their families. Special Olympics athlete Dustin Plunkett, who today will share his personal story, and it'll move you. I'm really excited to have him share that with you guys today. Dustin has been such a huge influence for the Special Olympics community that they hired him as a global messenger for them. And building trust in a relationship with sports enthusiasts is not much different than building advocacy at a scale in your organizations. Both require that you're authentic, honest, and transparent, and create opportunities for people to connect and engage with your brand. As we hear from the panelists today, I think you'll be able to take away valuable insights on how you can build connections in your organizations and your community. So first we'll start with Chris Klein, he'll speak here for about 20 minutes about his experience with the LA Galaxy. He was a professional soccer player. He was kind of the Iron Man of the professional MLS back in his playing day. I don't think he missed a game, or he played quite a few in a row. I think he set the record. And then we'll get to Dustin Plunkett and Bill Shumard, and then I'll join all four of them on stage. We'll talk for about 20 minutes, a little Q&A session, and then we'll open it up for about 15 minutes or so for questions from you. And as you guys know, there will be people running around with signs and microphones, and you can just wave them down. It's kind of hard to see with the lights, so just wave your hand, and we'll be sure to find you in the crowd. But before they play me off here, like they do at the Emmys or the Academy Awards with the music, I'll ask you to join me in welcoming Chris Klein. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. As he mentioned, it's an honor for me to be here to speak in front of you. It's a little intimidating speaking in front of a group of experienced communications professionals, but I'm going to give it my best. Talking about building community, and I believe that building community through sports is sometimes easier because there's a natural emotional connection that people have to their sports teams. Positive when they're winning, certainly negative when they're losing, but there's certainly that emotional connection. We have, I think, done a pretty good job over our 21-year history at the LA Galaxy of trying to make that connection, not only to our players, but our club. And I'll walk through a couple examples of how we have done that. But before I do that, I think it's important to at least give a general overview of how we got here, how we're here 21 years later as the LA Galaxy, part of a league that brought soccer to the United States, where it had been tried and failed a number of times. Dating back to the 70s and early 80s, there was a league called the NASL. And the NASL brought outdoor soccer to the United States. It was wildly popular in one market. The New York Cosmos had a player named Pelé, who they brought. They had players from all over the world that they brought to this country that was supposed to set the last remaining country where soccer wasn't the biggest sport on a path to success. What happens is they focused on one market, they focused on one team, and that team ran over everybody else. Ultimately, in the early 80s, it became a failure. The NASL folded, and everyone said that soccer wouldn't be seen again. They tried a number of different things. In the early 80s, into the late 80s, there was an indoor league called the MISL. The San Diego Sockers were the team here. I grew up in St. Louis. It was the St. Louis Steamers. And back when I was growing up as a kid, the St. Louis Steamers had my emotional connection. It was indoor soccer, so to the rest of the world it was fake. It wasn't authentic. But in this country, it was. It was what we had. Again, it wasn't managed properly. The ownership wasn't the right group, and ultimately it was a failure. Early 90s, the United States had just started coming onto the scene as a soccer team. And in 1990, we had a bunch of college kids that qualified for the World Cup in Italy. They qualified in the last kick of the ball in Trinidad and Tobago, and they went to the World Cup in Italy. This had been a drought for our country that had lasted a long time. And so here we have them going into this World Cup. They didn't do very well, but the big success was that they went. FIFA, the world's governing body, who's been in the news for mostly negative over the last couple years, went through the process of awarding the next World Cup. And in 1994, the United States won the bid. And there was a lot of skepticism throughout the world. Would this succeed in our country? Would this be something that we could build around, something that we could use, and something that would launch the sport in this country? As a prerequisite to the United States getting the World Cup in 1994, we had to commit to launching a professional league within 2 years of the end of the World Cup. In 1994, I'm not sure if any of you went to the World Cup, but even to date, it is the most successful World Cup in the history of the World Cup. And think about that for a second. In the United States, the world's greatest sport, here where it had never succeeded, in 1994, we filled stadiums across our country to watch the world sport. In 1996, we launched our league, Major League Soccer. And we talk about communication, we talk about building fan bases. We launched our league in 1996, not having any idea who we were. We launched our league here in this country thinking that soccer could never really succeed, so we kind of limped into it. We limped into it thinking that we needed to speak to Major League Baseball fans. We limped into it thinking we needed to speak to NFL fans. When in reality, we didn't need to do that. We have ties in our sport. We call them draws. Sometimes they're not all that exciting. But when we launched our league in 1996, we said we cannot have that. We took the world's game and we tried to Americanize it, thinking that it was the only path to success. What ended up happening was it went the other way. We didn't have ties. We wheeled a big clock out on the field, and we had penalty kick shootouts where you'd have to dribble in. Soccer fans didn't like it, and what we ended up seeing is that the casual sports fan didn't like it either, because they didn't like soccer. In 2000, we had an interesting moment where we went from 12 teams and we contracted down to 10. And at that moment, everyone said, this sport is finished. It will never make it in this country. And that was what really launched us. When we contracted from 12 teams to 10, it launched us on a path to success, and we started to build. And we knew that the ultimate success of our league rested in our ownership group. And even today, we're going on 22 teams, and we have the best ownership group, I believe, in all of sports. Starting with our owner, Mr. Anschutz, who knew how to build sports teams, who knew how to make them successful. 2007, another big moment with the LA Galaxy. We signed David Beckham. David Beckham was, as many of you know, not only was he one of the most popular players in the world. He was one of the most popular and well-known people in the world. And when we brought him to the LA Galaxy, again, we had to figure out, who are we speaking to? Was this going to be about David Beckham? Was this going to be about the LA Galaxy? Was this going to be about Major League Soccer? It was an incredible 5-year period that launched us on a path to where we were now. It was David Beckham, one. And the second part about that is that we also started to build our own stadiums. We knew that the connection to our fans had to exist in community. And we couldn't have the community. I played in Kansas City to start. We played in Arrowhead Stadium that held 80,000 people. It didn't matter how many people we had that came to our games. They couldn't find community in an 80,000-seat stadium when we had 20,000 people. So we went on a path where we started building soccer-specific stadiums. The first one was the Columbus Crew in 2000. They built theirs for about $25 million. It's a glorified high school football stadium. In 2003, Mr. Anschutz said, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this differently in LA. The Galaxy used to play at the Rose Bowl. We progressed. We had then, it was the Home Depot Center in Carson, California, where also the LA Chargers are playing now. And we built ours for about $200 million. It still stands today as one of the best venues, I believe, in our league. And it was a big moment for our league because now we said, we have to be us. We have to speak to real soccer fans about our sport. We started to realize that it didn't matter how many sports fans were in this country, we had to speak to the soccer fans. There's 75 million soccer fans in our country. We had to have the understanding that we could build a successful league, we could build a successful franchise off of those soccer fans. Today, we have less than 10% of them that watch and engage with our sport with Major League Soccer. People kind of turn their head up and say, struggling league. Not really. To me, that shows we have opportunity. We have opportunity to build those connections, and how do we do that? As I said, when we started this league in 1996, you could get in for $5 million and a commitment to carry the debt. Now, if you're going to get in our league, you have to commit upwards of $150 million for a franchise and a commitment to $300+ million to build your own stadium. And we have a line out the door to do that. Currently, there are 12 cities in our country that are vying for the last 3 spots to get us to 28 teams. So where does the Galaxy fit in to this? And how do we go about building our community here in Los Angeles and engaging our fan base? See if I can get through. I wanted to start with anything. I believe that to have something, we have to have our identity. And so at the Galaxy, we went through our mission, vision, and core values.
A champion for LA.
The Los Angeles Galaxy are the first to 5.
The LA Galaxy are dedicated to winning championships, furthering the sport of soccer, providing fans with world-class experiences, and enriching our community. We value our fans, whose passion is the heart and soul of our club. We value our team and are committed to nurturing talent throughout our organization. We value our community by embracing our responsibility to create a positive impact through the sport of soccer. We value our partners and collaborate with openness and trust to deliver memorable experiences. We pursue excellence in everything we do. We innovate, we think big, and we take chances. We use soccer as a platform to make our community a better place. We celebrate mutual respect, recognize everyone's contributions, and are proud to represent the diversity that is Los Angeles.
Being in a city like LA, we had to have the understanding that our only path to success in a market as cluttered as it is, in a market as challenging as Los Angeles is, the only path that we had to success would be to interact with our community in an authentic, positive way. We know that we have competition. Now it's even greater. We have the Chargers, we have the Rams, we have 2 hockey teams, we have 2 baseball teams, we have the entertainment industry, we have the traffic, we have the beach, we have the sun. So how do we find our way in all of this as soccer in the United States? We work very hard to connect with our fans. We believe that we have a fan base. We know that we have a fan base that is young, that likes to engage in a different way. Newspapers are not where it's at for us, although we believe that that's an important piece of us just for relevancy in our marketplace. Our communications department works to grow our club's foundation with local, domestic, and international media outlets while improving our reputation amongst media partners. This may seem easy for some of you that have blue chip companies that are constantly in the news and people want to interact with. For us, we constantly have to challenge to get their attention. We're always striving to do that as soccer, not only in our country, but soccer in LA. That causes us to have an aggressive outreach and progressive mindset to cut through the clutter and differentiate ourselves from other sports and entertainment in LA. And I'll walk through some examples in way that we do that. We have the best team. We need to be the best team in our league, but we understand that success is fleeting, and we can't rest everything on that. When David came here, everyone wanted to interact with the Galaxy. Everyone wanted to be a part of us. Everyone wanted to be near us. When he left, we had to take a good look at ourselves and say, okay, now when we bring in players, who are we going to be? The new player has to come in and be a part of our club. They have to be part of the city. They have to be part of Los Angeles. Digital, for us, this is nothing new for all of you, but digital is the way to go for us. We don't spend a ton of money on traditional marketing, traditional advertising, but we tried to have a tone and voice that we were able to push out digitally. Our fans watch, interact with us on social media. They watch short videos. They watch our games on their phones. And so we have to continue to change to be at the forefront of that. Our digital platforms, for us, are the primary way that we communicate with our fans and try to build community. We just launched an app to be able to interact with our fans in a different way. But all of these have to be done using our players and our club. We understand that these are our biggest assets. Our foundation is another way that we interact, and I want to walk through a couple of examples in the way that we've used this to correlate our players to our local community and using brands like yourselves that we have amazing partnerships with. The first one's our Chevrolet partnership. Chevy, car sponsor of ours. We have one of our players that Travis mentioned, Giassi Zardes. Giassi Zardes grew up in Hawthorne, California. He was part of our academy. He is LA to a lot of people. And the connection to Giassi, to our fans, is one that's authentic because he comes from our community. He is our community. So trying to find a way to integrate Giassi, one of our marquee players, with a community like Hawthorne and involving a partner like Chevrolet. And here's what happened.
You know, growing up here, I remember playing on tennis courts. I remember playing on basketball courts. But now the community, the neighborhood, the city of Hawthorne, we finally have a home to play soccer and enjoy it and not get kicked off. So I hope and pray that everybody who step on this pitch always have fun, and I know it's going to make a positive impact in the community. Thank you guys for just being a part of this.
Not only is he a top player, but he's become a role model for his people and the people in his community. And you see the reaction that he got today. It's very similar to the reaction I get back home. So you'd have a responsibility to try and help your own people, and actually very touching to see today Joshy coming back to his roots and giving a lot of time and effort to make the place better.
Growing up in Hawthorne, you have to choose your friends wisely. You can easily go down the wrong path if you have the wrong, the negative friends around you. So I try to place myself in a positive atmosphere with positive friends, and also friends that also had the same dreams and aspiration I did. So it means a lot growing up in Hawthorne and succeeding, being a kid that succeeds, and just being a person that younger kids can look up to. It's crazy to think about it, but a lot of kids look up to me. A lot of kids are from Hawthorne. I just want to shed light. Being a professional athlete, I want to be a positive image that they can look up to.
Beyond that, it was important for us not only to go in there and build a safe place to play, but also to invest back into that community for Giassi. He really did grow up 2 blocks from there. He learned to play soccer on those tennis courts where he'd have to climb the fence, kick the ball around till the police would kick him off. Fast forward to today, we put in those fields on those same tennis courts. Giassi has formed a partnership with the Hawthorne Police Department, same group that used to kick him off, to not only provide a safe place for kids to play soccer, but also he does clinics there, he invests there, he goes back and interacts with his community where he grew up. Another good example of how we have done this is another partnership that we have with Herbalife Nutrition. Herbalife Nutrition, they're our jersey sponsor. We interact with them in a lot of positive ways with nutrition for our athletes. But one interesting part of our relationship is there is part of it that calls out in our contract that we invest back in our community. And so again, like the Chevy partnership, we were looking for different ways to do that in an authentic way that spoke well about our brand, and that could interact with a group of people in a positive way. And we'll hear more from Special Olympics Unified. But of all the things that we've done, of all the trophies that we've won in this market, doing stuff like this helps create a community and brand association in a selfish way while making a positive impact on our community. So here's what we did with Special Olympics Unified.
You all are now part of our system, and you all should be very proud. We've worked very hard to get here, and it's an incredible moment not only for us, but you as well. Congratulations again. Welcome to our family. You all have contracts. Congratulations and welcome to our family.
Today we welcome our Special Olympic Unified team. I think they just signed their contract. I give them their jerseys. They're gonna wear exactly the same jerseys as we do. So I'm just excited to see how they are gonna do.
So I want to welcome you guys to our team, to our family, to the LA Galaxy family. So we have some special guests. Great to meet you. We got some food.
Doing these type of things is very important for me. I always say I try to use my platform to serve.
It's good. No, everyone's happy. Everyone's enjoying themselves. They got their trainers. We get to meet them, and hopefully in May they can win their game.
The thing I'm most looking forward to this season is that we get more teamwork and play more together.
Teamwork. That's all I want. It means a lot to me. It means like family. It means family. It means coming together. My favorite part today was meeting Pedro. We almost looked like twins too, but it's because of our curly hair.
So I'll wrap up here, but the last thing just with our Special Olympics Unified is being able to do that, and if we're going to do it, we go all in. We could have donated money, we could have donated our jerseys, we could have donated our logo, but if we were going to do this, we wanted to go all the way through. We have an academy, we have a reserve team, we have a first team, and we have our Special Olympics Unified team. They get the same placement on our website as our first team. We actually sign them to real contracts. We give them real gear. We have our coaches and our staff that train these players, and we try to give them as much support as we can. Going about this in an authentic way, we believe, is the only way that we're going to build long-standing community around our club. So with that, I thank you. I don't know, I'm welcoming Travis back up here, and I'm excited to be part of this panel and to interact with all of you. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chris. That was incredible. Thank you so much. I went to my first Galaxy game this year, and it was such a great fan experience that StubHub Center, it just made you feel like you're at home, and it's like a great place for you to watch a game and connect with the fans. Everyone's right there, and it's an awesome experience. So it was easy to get to all the concessions and get drinks and get food. So it made a great fan experience in that too. So you mentioned your connection to the Special Olympics, and I wanted to then open it up to my man here, who's also a Dallas Cowboys fan, Dustin Plunkett. He's through his role with the Special Olympics, he's been a key player in the community in that capacity. He's been to the White House. He's been to the ESPYs. He's been on stage with them for ESPN. I won't hold that against you, but he's also done sports commentating, and he's met with senators and members of Congress. So. Dustin, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what inspires you to want to join the Special Olympics community.
Well, it took me a while to learn about the Special Olympics community. We start our programs for children at the age of 8 and all that. We have a young athlete program for 2 to 7-year-olds, but I didn't find out about Special Olympics until I was about 15 years old. I was growing up through a local Parks and Recreation program, playing youth sports there. And a Special Olympics coach found me in this program going, hey, have you ever thought about joining the Special Olympics? I'm like, what is it? Who is it for? What's this organization all about? And then he goes, there are no better people to talk about the organization than the athletes themselves. So I get into a building where all the athletes are housed at, and 3 of them come up and invite me to go play basketball with them. And I'm on a basketball court with them, and they got the same skills as me. They talk just like me. I'm like, hey guys, let's take a quick time out. I got a question for you. And I asked them why did they join Special Olympics, and they said because it's a second family to them. And me growing up, I moved home to home, family member to family member, and nobody in my family knew how to really support me and take care of me. So Special Olympics became my family support system when I first joined. But I really didn't know how fortunate and blessed that I would be until I heard about our Healthy Athletes program, where our athletes get free screenings for our eyes, our teeth, our feet, hearing, dietary guidance, fitness tests to make sure we're the best players that we can be, and I'm pretty sure the Galaxy does it for all their players too. But my coach encouraged me to go through Special Smiles and get my teeth screened, because I haven't been to a dentist for 10 years before this time. And a volunteer dentist says, your teeth are in really bad shape, and you need to go get follow-up care right away. And I'm getting the follow-up care that they recommended, and my coach's dentist does x-rays, looks at the x-rays, and comes back in the room a couple minutes later and says, Dustin, brace yourself. I got some bad news for you, but don't worry about it. I know how to fix it. And he goes on to tell me that I had gum cancer forming in the upper left side of my mouth, and if it would have just went 1 more month longer, I wouldn't be alive today.
Wow, that's incredible. It's amazing that they were able to help you with that. Moving now to Bill, it's a tough act to following Dustin, but you work with him all the time here with the Special Olympics, and you talk about Special Olympics being a movement versus a charity. How do you go about building that movement, that action-based community, and why do you do that?
Thanks, Travis, and first, hats off to Chris and the Galaxy doing a tremendous job with that. One thing you said that really resonated with me, Chris, as a former college athletic director, building supporters versus fans. I knew the difference as an athletic director. Those supporters were with you thick and thin. And with Special Olympics, and I'm a lifelong sports executive, and sports has been a big part of my life, and, you know, people have not really taken Special Olympics seriously. One thing that upsets me a lot is when people say, oh, it's wonderful what you do for those poor people. Our athletes don't want to hear that. Our athletes compete and train with dignity, with respect, with courage, with joy, just like anybody else. And so to try to connect the community to our athletes, we do probably 200 or so competitions a year. We have a lot of events. Dustin plays an active role. Dustin is at the manager level on our staff. He's a very key member of our staff. One of his big jobs is to train future athlete leaders to go out and speak. We are very active in the media, traditional, digital, social. We want to get our athletes out in front of people. We serve 30,000 athletes. We like to tell you about one of them. We like to tell you about one of them because, as Chris says, that builds community, that builds engagement.
Yeah, the human element is just, it's so key. You mentioned working with the media, and just last week I got an email from the LA Rams, who Johnny Heckard was partnering with you guys. Yeah. Tell us about that event that you guys had last week.
Yeah, absolutely. The Rams came from St. Louis a couple of years ago, and we reached out, said, we're not going to ask you for anything. Welcome to the neighborhood. When you get settled in, you're probably going to like working with us, but we're here to just say welcome. And sure enough, they kind of a great example. Let me thank Megan Jordan, a member of this group and senior vice president with Herbalife, who's a great connector and did a lot to bring together the Galaxy and Special Olympics. Well, Albertsons Vons Pavilion is another big sponsor for us, big sponsor with the Rams. And of course, Albertsons Vons Pavilion's telling the Rams, you need to work with those guys. You need to work with Special Olympics. And the Rams have jumped in big time. I mean, coming back into the LA community, you heard from Chris just what you guys have done to infiltrate the market. I think the Rams, they still got to win. They still got to win. But they're doing everything right in terms of infiltrating the community. So they've engaged us at several levels. They're great partners, and we're big fans.
We'll jump back to Chris now, and you mentioned the supporters compared to the fans. Like, what's the difference there with your group at the LA Galaxy games?
Yeah, in our sport, we have fans and we have actual supporters. Supporters takes on a little different connotation than maybe it would at a college or university. Our supporters are the ones that stand and sing. They organize. We have 3 supporter groups: the Angel City Brigade, the LA Riot Squad, and the Galaxians. And they're like any other organization. Then the way that they support their team, we have to interact with them in a different way. In Europe, sometimes these are your hooligan fan culture. So getting them and having them in our stadium, they create an atmosphere that really sets soccer apart from different sports. People have tried to replicate it. I know our friends at the Kings have tried to replicate it a little bit in hockey, but it really is unique to soccer. The way that they sing, the way that they chant, the way that they support our club. And so our interaction with them is much different than it is with our general sports fans.
It's definitely different than any other sport. You don't see that in NFL games. You don't see that in MLB games. The singing and the crowd being behind it, it's a really cool experience to be a part of. So I want to talk about Giassi a little bit more with you. I read a story that was in the LA Times. If you guys pull that up, and when you get some free time, it's pretty moving. We saw what he did there, but there was one thing in the story that really stood out for me with one of the kids that was in it. She wasn't involved in anything. She had a 1.6 grade point average, and then when she started showing up and playing soccer with Giassi and the kids out there, she boosted her GPA to a 3.0, and it's like that alone just is amazing. So talk about him as a person and how you get him involved in other people on your team to really get out in community.
It's we believe that we're there to communicate a message, not only to our fans but through our athletes who, again, they're our asset and we have to promote them. With Giassi, he's really a special kid. I can remember when we were trying to get him to leave college early, and we had conversations with him, with Bruce Arena, with myself, sitting with him, and he wouldn't budge. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about an opportunity or fame with Giassi. He made a promise to his mother and his father that he was going to graduate college. And so he wanted to try, and yeah. And here I am trying to get him to leave early. But he made that promise to his family, and so he wanted to try and go as far as he could with that. He ended up coming to us his junior year. And once he got there, coming from his community, saw what we did in Hawthorne. But another thing that was important to him, obviously, was his education. He talked about when he grew up, he never had a laptop. It wasn't easy for him to study. Giassi, from the first time that he set foot, we're on a college campus at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Giassi enrolled in classes there and actually went through graduation this summer and got his degree. But beyond that, he said, okay, I didn't have a laptop when I was growing up. What are some things that I could do? He came to us, and we connected them with our friends, with Megan and her group at Herbalife, and said, what are ways that we can impact this community? So we partnered with a place called Home. And Giassi, in conjunction with our foundation, with Herbalife, gave kids laptops to be able to study, to be able to do things that he wasn't able to do. And expanding his brand, our brand, with an authentic connection into our community has been a really, successful. We're making a positive impact. But from a brand standpoint, it's been very successful for us, very successful for him. And we really do genuinely believe that we're making an impact in our community.
That's awesome. One of the things that I read in that story as well was the community relations director for the Galaxy said he's the kind of guy who it's easy to get him to the event, but it's tough to get him to leave because he just wants to stay there and be involved. And Dustin's another guy who's very involved, and you have a very significant following in social media. How do you develop your relationships with your fans?
Just getting out there at events like this, getting the word out about how Special Olympics changes people's lives through the civil power of sports and all that. And then using the relationship that I have to keep the word out there going about us and all that. Where at work, I run the Fans in the Stands program, trying to promote our events and all that, getting more fans out to the thing. And with the Galaxy helping us out and all that, it's really getting us going strong. Where we just opened up our website for our fall games, which is 2 months away, and we already have 200 people registered for Fans in the Stands already. So it's just amazing that that's my network, and that's all the connections that we make in the community through our partners with the Galaxy and everything that I do on social media.
That's incredible. Bill, I'm going to go to you now. When you came to the organization, you needed to establish the type of competitive desire for excellence in the organization and that are found in all professional sports franchises. How did you do that, and how did you build support from those fans and partners?
You know, Travis, I sat on the board of directors as a volunteer for 5 years with Special Olympics Southern California when I was athletic director at Long Beach State, because the biggest event of the year for Special Olympics was on my campus, so I was on the board. Patrick McClanahan, the chairman of our board then, we went through kind of a revolving door, went through three CEOs in 7 years, and he said, you need to come and take this job. And I said, I'm a sports guy, I don't know anything about running a charity. And he said, no, Bill, he said, you're the world's largest sports organization. This needs to be run like a sports organization. So he brings me in and sits me down in front of 50 employees. I'm the fourth flavor of the month. And I said, we will be the preeminent, the premier program in this movement worldwide. And a few people had the guts to come back and tell me after that, what's the big deal? Why can't we just be good? And of course, 10 years later, we're the host of the biggest sporting event and humanitarian event in the world in 2015. We're the host program for the 2015 Special Olympics World Summer Games. First games to be televised internationally. Dustin was an ESPN analyst. So it was just changing that culture, bringing that competitiveness into the organization, taking things seriously. We don't go out with our hand out, oh, you have to help us. We're partnering. How can we help you, Chris? How can we help you reach your goals? There's nothing I like to hear more than when our partners tell us, you guys are the gold standard. Everybody we partner with, we compare to you guys. Well, they should. That's what we want to stand for. Our corporate partners, Travis, they've not been with us for years. A lot of them have been with us for decades. You could go out and hire Tony Robbins to come in and give you a motivational speech, or you can bring your employees out and serve at a Special Olympics event and get hugged. and we got you.
That's awesome. That brings me to the next thing I want to ask Chris here is what do you see as benefits to partnering with organizations like the Special Olympics, and what other partnerships have you cultivated and in which you've been most successful?
The Special Olympics partnership for us is really unique because when we enter into it, and this may be normal, it was, hey, I think we can make an impact here. Let's partner with them and see how it goes. What we found in the partnership, it was much more than that. They wanted to be successful. They wanted to win. They wanted to have the same opportunity as our athletes. And so, Dustin came and spoke to our staff, and really the culture of everything that they're doing invaded us, and it changed the way that we looked at these partnerships and how we wanted to approach it. We actually, when Lauren, who runs our foundation, came to us with the idea of partnering with them, we actually had to regroup and kind of refocus and say, they're not here for what we wanted, which is, a donation and some uniforms. This has to be much bigger, and if we're going to do it, we have to approach it in that way, which we did. Our team has struggled on the field this year, and last month, I think it was, our Special Olympics Unified team has done very well this year, and we have a goal of the month, and one of the kids on our Special Olympics Unified team scored an amazing goal. We have a partnership where we have our goal of the month, and we actually put it up for goal of the month, and it won. And it was on SportsCenter. It was a top 10 on SportsCenter, and so just engaging with them in this different way, I think, changed us, and that's what partnerships about. Not because Megan's here, but all the things that we do with a partner like Herbalife is we take something that they were the first jersey sponsor in our league, which is something that you have throughout the world in soccer is that prominent place. But we really took the partnership and said, okay, how can we take this that pays us money? They pay us a lot of money, which is great for us. We give them a good brand association, which is great for them. How can we take it further? So offering nutrition classes to not only our athletes, but to the community. We travel internationally. In every place that we go in partnership with them, we've been able to leave things behind, whether it be a field, whether it be impacting a school. We never go someplace internationally without investing in the community. And it's really rare and unique to have a partner that has the same vision as you. And so having that alignment is something that we look for in partners.
That's awesome. You mentioned being involved in multiple countries, ages, ethnicities, and talk about how the LA Galaxy goes about building this diverse group of fans, in far-reaching communities and not just a fan base.
For us, it started, again, as I said, in 2007 when David came to our club. We went in reverse. We built this global fan base because of him and because of this recognition. You could go somewhere in Africa or Asia and you'd see a kid wearing a Galaxy shirt. So we had a global reach and a global fan base before we had really solidified our fan base here in LA. What we came to understand is that we had to identify, certainly locally with a city, with players that represented our diverse community in LA, which we have. Giassi is a great example from that. And once we were able to do that, to be able to go nationally and internationally to then reestablish our brand is kind of the phase that we're in now. And so strategically partnering with people to go into markets. We've been to, I want to say we've been to 20 countries to play games with these Herbalife tours that we do that really are good brand exercises for us.
Dustin, you've been around the world doing different things with Special Olympics. Talk about some of your world travels and things that you've done in other countries as well.
I'm just getting to go to Shanghai, China was my first ever trip outside in 2007, where I got to meet a whole host of people there. I got to speak with Yao Ming at opening ceremonies in front of 100,000 people, to traveling to Austria and South Korea, and really getting to see the world's view on Special Olympics and how partners around the world come together for this organization has just been a great eye-opener for me, but then really seeing that the passion is still the same no matter where you go is what the community base it really rallies around. If they really rally behind Special Olympics, and you're going to have a lot of fans and supporters out there and people behind the movement.
That's awesome. And I think we probably have time for this last question for you, Bill. The video that Chris showed with the unified showed a little bit about what those athletes did, but you mentioned even more of what those kids were going through before they got the donations from the Galaxy. So can you touch on that a little?
Absolutely. It was 3 years ago or so, first year of unified soccer, and immediately before that video, our athletes, mostly inner city athletes, are standing outside the stadium waiting for their Galaxy representative to come and get them, and they've got their shopping bags with their tattered shoes and their shin guards that they tape on with electrical tape, and standing there very humbly. And in roll these Escalades, windows blackened, and pull up out front. In marches the unified team from Colorado, matching warm-up suits, probably sunglasses, I don't know, but that would fit the image. Blow right past our team into the locker room like they own the place. And of course, our athletes are like, wow, the game's over already. And the Galaxy representative comes out and gets them, walks them in, opens up the locker room door, and you saw what was there for them. Sports has been a big part of my life. I was never a very good athlete. My family moved around a lot when I was young, but every time we moved, if I got on a team and I got a shirt and a hat, I belonged. That's my connection to our athletes at Special Olympics. You guys made them belong, Chris. You saw what happened when they got the uniforms and the new shoes. Amazing sense of belonging. Signing a contract? Oh my gosh. Oh my, that changes lives.
Sports has always been the same way for me as an athlete growing up. Playing football and running track, it was like being on that team, being a part of something. It was so meaningful to me. And another story about Giossi I wanted to just touch on real quick was his mom mentioned he was an LA Galaxy fan going to those games, and he didn't get an autograph one time. She didn't say who the player was, but it reminded me of a story when I was a kid. We drove down to Denver to watch the Bulls take on the Nuggets, and Dikembe Mutombo, who you may remember from the Geico commercials doing the waving finger when he got blocked shots, he stood out and signed autographs for all of us little kids, all 7'2" of him. We all stood there like screaming, "Sign my paper, sign!" And he's from the Congo, and he just stood there and he says, "Be patient, little people, I will sign." and it was really cool. And I remember that till the day I die. My family, we still say that, like, "Be patient, little people," my mom will say to us, and it's just it's those stories that make these connections so amazing. And it's just I would tell when I worked for the Vikings, I would tell the athletes, like, kind of encourage them, take some time to meet these fans, sign autographs for them. You don't want to be the person that they remember for not signing it or not taking the time to say hello. You want to be remembered for being the guy that did, and have a story that 25 years later some guy's talking about it still. So with that, I think we can open it up to questions from the crowd. I think we have people with microphones if anyone has questions. Or anyone? It's hard to see, sorry.
Good morning. Paul Gerard from Blue Cross Blue Shield and a lifelong Chelsea fan. Chris, I really enjoyed your presentation on a sense of community that you've built between the Galaxy and your local community. Do you get a sense that with the money pouring into professional sport, we'll focus just on soccer for a moment, TV revenues and what have you, that the sense of community is dissipating for certain fans, or is it just becoming more of a global community? Just where you see community going for soccer, I'd be interested in your opinions.
It's an interesting question with the money that's pouring in here, overseas, certainly in our sport and in other sports. I think community is changing. There's different ways to do it where you're actually going out and investing in the community, but people are also finding community in social channels. And so trying to figure out ways to gather our group around a topic or a video or around a conversation around some of our matches is something that we spend a lot of time. It seems like it's changing every second, and the way that we're doing that is changing as well. In terms of TV money, it's kind of the last way, sports is the last way that people are still plugged in to some extent. So just figuring out different ways to do that. I believe that we have to go out and actually still invest in an old-fashioned way into our community, but we also have to be realistic and understand how things are and how we can build our online community, our social community as well.
All right, go ahead here.
Hello, my name is Michael Merck, and I have a question to Chris. Thank you for your presentation, and I'm really with you as a German living in the United States, being a soccer addict. Every 4 years when I see the FIFA World Cup, I really hope every year you guys are making it. The US is making it. I'm somehow with you. I mean, I'm really hopeful for that. I have a question regarding to the FIFA itself. You're building up a community, and I was wondering how you're handling that, or how you're experiencing the controversy around the FIFA itself around the world. Do you see that building up your community, and if so, how are you handling that from a communication perspective?
The FIFA scandal, a lot of which was started with CONCACAF, which is our region, and some things that happened here, hasn't really hit us as much because, I mean, our league, more than any other, I mentioned our ownership group, we have stability. We have stayed away from that. It hasn't hit us really at all. Part of it was negative to us in that we didn't get the 2022 World Cup, which is going to go to Qatar in an amazing fashion. But it's put us in a position to now bid for the 2026 World Cup, which we are very confident that we're going to get back in this country. I mentioned the 1994 World Cup and the success there. Pointing towards 2026, and we talk about community, we know without a doubt that if the World Cup comes here, that it's going to set new attendance records, it's going to set new TV records, it's going to set new revenue records. It's not really the aim for us in the soccer community in this country. The aim is to continue to build our soccer community. The World Cup, like no other event, can galvanize people from different communities, Germans like yourself and English people in our country to be able to gather around the World Cup. We're looking at different ways to engage that community next summer, during the World Cup in Russia. So different ways to do that. The scandal hasn't really hit it, but I think the opportunity of what a World Cup brings is significant.
Yeah, being an employee of Fox Sports who has the World Cup next year, we hope the same thing. So hopefully we'll all tune in there. Go ahead.
Hi guys, my name is Marta Newhart. I want to thank Bill Shumard for all you do for people with intellectual disabilities. It's amazing. Chris, the sense of community that you bring, phenomenal. Thank you for all you've done. My question is for Dustin, because Dustin, you're kind of the star of the show up there. Who is your role model and why?
Wow, great question right there. My role model would have to be Chuck Martucci. He is the coach that got me involved. The one whose friend of his was my coach growing up in the Lakewood Youth Sports program, who got Chuck out to meet me when I was 7 years old. So Chuck has pretty much been my role model, pretty much been a father figure and a mentor to me, and been there every step of the way.
That's great. Coaches and educators, still have a special place in my heart, and you guys as athletes as well know that those guys, shape you and build you, and you still have connections to them to this day. Next question. Go ahead here.
Hi, I'm John Onoda. I'm with Fleischman Hillard. Chris, just a question about building fans. When you're thinking about creating a tribe, are you trying to go after primarily people who already are affiliated with another sports organization and you're trying to get them away, or are you intentionally looking for people who have no primary affiliation?
Really interesting question. I mentioned a little bit how this has changed for us since the inception of the league. We do know that casual sports fans have a possible affinity to us. There are 75 million of soccer fans that we want to go after, and so it's really targeting those, whether it's a fan of Chelsea, fan of Bayern Munich, I don't know who you're a fan of, but that possibly would get up on a Saturday morning and watch a Chelsea match and then either come to our game in the evening or watch our game on TV. So that is certainly one aspect of it. It's really interesting. In Atlanta, Atlanta United has launched their MLS franchise just this year. It came into our league with a lot of skepticism because Atlanta itself is not a really good sports market. You see the Atlanta Braves that were playing in the World Series and they had empty seats in their stadium. What has happened has been pretty incredible in Atlanta. Not only have they sold out, they have over 40,000 season ticket holders. They just set a record this past weekend. They had 71,000 people at their inaugural game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. All of this has been done without going after Falcons fans. They have a 4% crossover in terms of their fan base, which blew my mind in terms of how Atlanta went into that market and they went after soccer fans because they had an understanding of what was there in that market and they knew that they weren't the same fans that were going to watch the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday.
That's impressive. I see one over here.
Hi, Mary Lynn Carver, General Mills. I've got a question for you on Galaxy, and I think really congratulations for learning a lot of lessons, I think, from some of the other pro franchises about how to build a community brand and how not to, I think, in some cases. I'm really excited to see some of the things you're doing. A question for you is we're looking very, very carefully at associating our brands with celebrities, for example, and we're very, very choosy about what we do. I think the reverse is true as well. So I'd love to hear how you are looking for partners and what do you look for in those partners and how careful are you related to reputation of those brands and companies that you partner with?
Good question. We believe we're in a unique position because we're still in a fan acquisition mode. And so you talk about, I'll use the NFL as an example, and I believe that it would be a lot easier to know that people are going to come to your games just because you turn the lights on. We believe we have to do more. As a player in this league, I had a real understanding that I had to do more. You mentioned Mutombo. Our players generally, for the most part, have an understanding that they need to sign autographs because that's the only way that it's going to impact and build that community. As it relates to brands, it also becomes difficult because we need people that want to associate with us. The big thing for us at the Galaxy and finding partners like we have, certainly in Herbalife and in Chevy, is finding people that have a consistent vision. We've found that when someone is invested in the game in this country, that we have a much better success rate, not only of getting them in, having them pay for it, but having like-minded programs and activations that we can do that can grow our brand so that we can make more money in the end.
That's good because you see Herbalife on the jerseys for the Galaxy. You're now starting to see this in other sports, the crossovers there with the NBA, and they're getting brands on their jerseys. NFL has practice jerseys, they have sponsorship, and it's only a matter of time until you see it on their jerseys on game days as well. Go ahead, right here.
Thank you. Good morning. Larry Parnell from George Washington University. I want to thank you all for coming. Actually, my question is for Megan. Because we're going to be discussing this in a panel later on today, but I'd be curious from your perspective, what's the benefit of all this for you and what are some of the trials and tribulations you've gone through? Since you're not on our panel, I thought I'd get you to talk about it now.
Thank you. For Herbalife, I'm sure you're all in communications, you're aware we've certainly gone through some battles with a activist short seller over the past couple of years who has, had quite a misinformation campaign against us to drive down the stock. And so, how do you counterbalance some of those things? And really what we tried to do is just stay true to some of the relationships that we've had through and through. And, again, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of independent distributors, and we have millions of customers. And so we're fortunate that we have kind of a built-in fan base right there, but we have these partnerships that we've had for such a long time that really make all the difference. And so it's kind of what, Bill and Chris and Dustin have been talking about. Because you have that loyal fan base, you can weather through. And we've seen that when we do reputation studies, and we'll look at what was the sentiment, the corporate sentiment before our short seller came in. And then what was it afterwards? With the general public, we held pretty consistent. With elites, there was a dip. You can get them back. It takes a little longer. But when we talk about, of course, any kind of, community relations, any CSR work, of course, that's going to help. And, so for kind of my day job, that was very important. But on a very human level, I've been on Special Olympics board prior to Herbalife when I was with Southern California Edison, and actually, it was contingent in my accepting the job with Herbalife is that they would sponsor the Special Olympics and allow me to stay on the board. And I think they kind of surprised us all. I was telling Marta the story earlier. I had asked for $20,000 and they gave $250,000. So it's been a wonderful relationship. And one kind of additional surprise, I'd say, we have this built-in amazing group of independent distributors. These are their, it's their own money, they're small business owners, and when Herbalife gave the $250,000 to sponsor the World Games for Special Olympics, that was the corporate money. We asked employees to come out and volunteer. They helped register, the athletes from around the world and get them set up. But I just, we created a little email and, sent some communications to our distributors around the world and just said, hey, if you'd like to be part of this, you may have teams. We're in 94 markets around the world. So you might have teams from, your country coming to, compete in the World Games. We'd love to host them at a reception here when they're in town. And, if you want to get involved, we'd love to have you. And given that we're a nutrition and fitness company, maybe you want to volunteer and be coaches in your community. What we didn't expect was there were 7,000 athletes that competed at the World Games, and these independent business owners, they stepped up and they sponsored 700 of them. So it was about 1.4 million of their own money. We did not see that coming. So it's been pretty amazing, and I think it really motivated our employees. It was great for these kind of this independent sales force, and certainly great for the reputation.
Thank you, Megan. Great question, Larry. I think we probably have time for maybe one more. I think we have one over here we go to.
Hi, thank you very much. Anthony Gooch, another lifelong Chelsea fan since 1977 when they were very, very bad and had no money. I wanted to ask you about two things, community and what I see as retro engineering. It's very interesting how sport in Europe and in particular in England, the Premier League was very influenced by American expertise in developing fan bases, but also developing merchandising, etc. So it learned a great deal. And I get the impression almost that there's retro engineering through what you're doing, which is learning back again some of the really important elements like the geographic connection to communities. So you've talked about building stadia as a commitment. I'm assuming LA Galaxy will never ever leave LA in a way that English soccer teams can never leave their neighborhoods or their cities. The second element relates to equity. And here it's a question regarding what you think might need to happen, for example, in England. You have salary caps and you have certain policies here that ensure that you have a level playing field in some shape or form, which is a very interesting model and example. You have a draft in the NFL as well, so that the worse off teams get the best picks of college players. Do you think that that's something that needs to be explored and that soccer could learn from in other parts of the world from what you've done? And two very quick sub-questions. What will your pricing policy be in order to make sure that normal fans, say from Hawthorne and poor parts of LA, can go to your stadia? Because at Chelsea now, if you don't have money, you don't get into the stadium. I used to pay 50p as a kid, and now I have money I can afford. And has the Hispanic community influenced you in community?
See if I can remember all of this. In terms of how we look at European teams, the idea of community, certainly, especially in England and some clubs throughout Europe, it is their community. You'll see, you look at London, there's, I think, 5 clubs in London, stadiums that are, sometimes a couple miles apart, and they have a real attachment. Even the two of you being Chelsea supporters could probably sit and talk for hours. So we do learn from them. I do think you're correct, though. We have Arsenal came over last summer, and their CEO is a friend of mine, and they still learn from us in terms of game presentation. They don't take many risks there because, like the NFL we were talking before, they have an invested fan base already. So to be able to get creative and to do some things that maybe we think we have to do here, from an entertainment perspective, they don't have to do there. Where they have become much better is even through digital communication and the way that they do it. A club like Manchester City has done an incredible job in how they've built a community really of fans that are not just in Manchester, England. If you've ever been to Manchester, England, it is a very small town city, and they have two of the biggest, most powerful clubs in the entire world. So they've created a fan base that blows through Manchester, through the United States. They have different communities in Asia, where they've expanded their brand. So that's certainly ways that we can learn from them. In terms of pricing, in terms of speaking to our fans, we make an attempt to make it affordable. Candidly, we're still in a position now where pricing is advantageous to us. For a family, we are still the most cost-effective way for entertainment. If I'm being honest, and we have the Chargers playing in our stadium now, and it's difficult in a smaller stadium for someone to get a ticket. It's expensive, and we have to run a business. So if I'm being honest, I don't know what position we would be in. I would like to think that we would still have, certainly for our supporter groups who still get in at a good price, that we would hold some of those price levels so that people could come and support our club that have been with us for a long time. In terms of the Hispanic market, it's interesting for us because we have over 50% of our fan base that is Hispanic. What we have found is that they are second generation English speaking. So someone that grew up in Mexico, for example, that supported Club America, we now have their kids here that possibly have an affinity towards Club America, but also that are looking for their team here in the United States. And so we try to be effortlessly bilingual in terms of how we go about, certainly in the Los Angeles market, in the way that we communicate to our fans. Did I get everything?
That was impressive. I mean, that was a long question, and you tackled it all. I think that's all the time we have, and I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Chris and Dustin and Bill for being a part of this. Thank the Arthur W. Page Society for having us. How about a round of applause for these guys? We all hope that you were able to take something from this session. I guess I'll end with something I've been saying to my friends for a while now. It's the ABCs. Always be connecting. So I'll end with that, and thank you again, and have a great day. Thank you.